The Whitaker family had been searching for a fresh start. After years of living in a crowded city, David and Melissa wanted somewhere quiet, somewhere their 13-year-old daughter Emily could grow without the noise and stress of urban life. So when they found a beautiful forest lodge listed for rent in the small town of Cedar Falls, they didn't hesitate. The photos showed tall pine trees, a calm lake nearby, and a home tucked so perfectly into the woods it looked like a postcard. But on the day they arrived, something felt different. Not wrong, just quieter than they expected. The kind of silence where even the wind seems to stand still. Inside a lodge, everything looked normal: clean rooms, freshly polished wooden floors, and large windows facing the forest. But the rental folder on the kitchen counter had one strange page. A single rule printed in bold letters: do not open the curtains after midnight. There was no explanation. No warning. No signature from the owner. Just that sentence. David laughed it off. Probably to keep out animals, he said. Melissa agreed. Or maybe the landlord is paranoid. Emily didn't comment. She kept looking at the tall curtains covering the windows, wondering why anyone would include such a specific rule. That night, the family unpacked and settled in. They cooked dinner, watched a movie, and admired how peaceful everything felt. The kind of peace they had wanted for years. But at exactly 12:07 a.m., something changed. It started with a sound: slow, heavy footsteps outside the living room window. Not an animal. Not the wind. Footsteps. Melissa froze. Did you hear that? David nodded and stepped closer to the window, stopping just inches from the closed curtains. We're in the woods, he whispered, as if trying to convince himself more than her. It could be anything. But the footsteps didn't wander away. They circled the house. Emily, who had come out of her room after hearing the noise, whispered, maybe that's why the rule exists. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the footsteps stopped right outside a main window, the one with the long, heavy curtains blocking the view. David reached for the curtain edge. Melissa grabbed his arm. No. The rule. Just don't. Reluctantly, David stepped back. By morning, the family had convinced themselves it was nothing. Just nerves or a large deer walking by the house. The forest was full of wildlife, after all. But the second night was different. At 12:03 a.m., before the family even went to sleep, Emily heard something whispering outside her bedroom window. Not a voice she could understand, more like breathing mixed with faint murmurs, as if someone stood inches away from the wall. She ran into her parents' room, panicked. There's something out there, she cried. Something whispering. David grabbed a flashlight and walked through the house, checking each window, the curtains still drawn, just as the rule instructed. But when he reached the living room, he froze. Something was pressing against the curtain from the outside. Not a hand. Not a face. A shape tall, thin, and unmoving. He didn't open the curtain. He didn't even breathe. He simply backed away until the shape faded, as if it slowly stepped back into the night. By morning, the family agreed they needed answers. They walked into Cedar Falls and found the local cafe. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other, and newcomers were noticed immediately. When Melissa mentioned the Forest Lodge, the cafe went silent. An older man finally spoke. "You rented the Whitaker place?" David nodded. "Yes. Beautiful spot. But can you tell us anything about the midnight rule?" A few people exchanged glances. The older man sighed. "That rule isn't new. The previous families followed it too. The house sits on old forest land that was once home to people who believed the woods changed after midnight. They said the forest was just dark at night. It was awake." Emily swallowed hard. "What happens if someone opens the curtains?" The man hesitated. "No one knows for sure. But they say if you look at what stands outside the window after midnight, something looks back. And once it sees you, it doesn't leave." The family returned home shaken, but determined to pack up and leave the next morning. That night, they stayed awake together in the living room, waiting out the hours until sunrise. Every light in the house was on. But at 12:00 a.m., all the lights shut off at once. No flicker. No fade. Just darkness. Footsteps circled the house again. Slow. Heavy. Intentional. Melissa held Emily close. David whispered, "Don't touch the curtains. No matter what." Something tapped the glass behind the curtains once, twice, then a slow drag of fingers across the window. Emily began crying softly. "Why us?" she whispered. Then a voice outside, a deep, distorted echo, spoke her name. Lie. She clamped her hands over her ears, refusing to listen. The footsteps moved toward the largest window in the living room. The one with the tallest curtains. The tapping stopped. Silence filled the room until something began pulling at the curtains from the outside. Not enough to open them, but enough to make them sway gently, as if something tall was standing just inches away. David grabbed his family and moved them to the center of the house, far from the windows. No one slept. By sunrise, the footsteps were gone. The lights flicked back on, and the forest looked peaceful again. They packed and left that same morning, never returning to Cedar Falls. The landlord never contacted them. He never asked why they left early. And the listing for the lodge quietly vanished from every rental site. Months later, Emily still hears tapping sounds, sometimes faint, slow, like fingers on glass. She refuses to sleep near windows now. And she still wonders, if they had opened the curtains that night, what would they have seen? And more importantly, what would have seen them? If you enjoy dark mysteries, abandoned places, and stories that feel a little too real, this episode is for you. Subscribe for more weekly stories filled with fear, tension, and the unknown.